Good morning. We are here at our first candle making workshop. This is this beautiful barn location that we are hosting this in. Unfortunately, it is a relatively warm day today, so we're gonna do the best we can, but we got lights up here and there are AC units and everything that we can turn on, but I'm just gonna go through and show you all of the tables, the setup of everything, so you can see it. But as you can see, it is a beautiful location. So here's an overview of everything. So they have these awesome little bar stand things. So we were able to turn one of these around. And then this is where we're gonna be pouring the wax. And then this is kind of like a little back end area to pour the fragrance oil. So these are the bottles that we created to make it look a lot nicer than the bottles that they come in. And this is a sample tray just so I can go over and show everybody what is on their tray. And then these are the little prizes that people have a chance to win during bingo. So here's just an overview of the barn. Again, it's a beautiful day today, but it is a little toasty. So here is an overview of the tables. I have gloves on both sides. These are actually smaller gloves and those are bigger gloves over there, but it's just in case anybody wants to wear them while they're handling the fragrance oil. So I have all of the little 1 ounce samples of all of the fragrances over here. So here's all the fragrances down there. And again, they're just little droppers, so they can just take out one of these little perfume sticks and put drops on the perfume sticks to smell it. And then on the tray itself, so we have the pouring pitcher, the jar. We did pre-put the dots on the bottom. We have the stir stick, the little shot cup, the wicks, the little gold straw to set it, and then the wick setter. And in terms of the scent menu, so here is the scent menu that I have. We have highlighters, pens, Sharpies. Those will come in handy for doing the labels and then also for bingo later. And here is just all what it looks like. I think it looks so cool. Just all set up like a photo of this all together. Let me get this to focus. There we go. And then same thing. So here's this table. Again, it just has everything. So we have a total of 13 people that are coming to this workshop. So just these tables all down the middle. So I wasn't able to film a lot, but I'll just kind of scooch over. I can't play the music just because of copyright and all that kind of stuff. YouTube's weird with it, so I'll put some footage over here because I did have a content creator and she was awesome. I will have her information in the pinned comment down below. If you're in this local area and you are looking for some kind of content creator, she was awesome. She just went through and just filmed the whole thing. She put together some reels for me as well, which was awesome, and then gave me the raw footage. But you can just see it was so beautiful. It was so nice. We ended up having only 11 out of the 12 people show up, which I was actually really happy about because I wasn't sure, if everybody was going to be able to show up, but there was one person that actually wasn't able to come. But with the lady who owned the barn, she actually participated as well. And so we did have a total of 12 people do the event. So overall, it was really fun. I will say that the biggest bummer out of all of it was the weather. And this was something that I was afraid of, but because the lady who owned the barn, she did say that she had AC. But the AC units, I mean, they were nice when you stood up right next to them, but it wasn't really like a high-powered AC that was going to fill the whole barn or anything. So it was still really warm and I felt so bad, but everybody was so sweet. And even when we were done with the event, there were a lot of people that were saying, when is your next one? I'm so excited for your next one. I'll definitely come. And so I'll just kind of go over how the day went, just from start to finish, just so I can try to recall and remember everything that had happened and kind of what I think worked really well and maybe what I want to change for next time. So of course, the first thing we did when we got there was set up all the tables. Now, this was the first time getting things set up, so it was really just trying to figure out exactly how I wanted to lay everything out. And as you saw from the footage, I ended up, laying it out the way that I did, and I was really happy with the way that it looked. It looked really nice. I liked the black and the gold together. The white trays, I'm kind of so-and-so with that. I'll probably get something better in the future, but as of right now, it worked just fine for what we needed it for. And we went through, added all the supplies to it and everything. And then I actually had a little podium stand in the front of the whole, in front of all the tables. And I was able to have my own tray. Now, I'm not gonna lie, you guys. I know you may possibly look at me as being somebody who's like, oh, she's so confident to like talk in front of people. Keep in mind, when I'm talking in front of the camera right now, it's just me alone in this room. It's just a camera. And I know, if you were to probably sit down and do a YouTube video, it'd probably be like, oh my God, I don't even know what to say. The camera's on, it's recording, this is awkward. For me, having a camera in front of me is pretty comfortable. Like, I have no problem with this. I used to really like giving speeches when I was younger, but it was when I was really, really prepared exactly what I was going to say, and I loved it. But with this, I didn't know exactly what I was going to say. I had the gist, I had notes written down on what I wanted to bring up, but for the most part, I didn't have like a full script of exactly what I was going to say. I was shaking. I was so nervous, but what's crazy is when I look back on the footage, I don't even seem nervous. There was one time that I stumbled over my words, and it was when I was talking about the disclaimer, and I'm just like, I'm like trying to find my words, and it was a little awkward, and then I just kind of moved past it really quick because I'm like, don't want to be so awkward right now. But everybody knew it was my first one. They were all awesome, super sweet, really great group of people. I did have the 2 people from Mexico that traveled down, and they were so sweet, awesome to talk with. They stayed, a little bit later, and we were able to have one-on-one conversations, and it was really cool to be able to meet them. And it was just such a really cool experience to be able to do that. I did have snacks, so I brought crackers, cheese, salami, and grapes along with the mimosas. And when Chris was having all the glasses of the mimosas, we realized we were 1 glass short. And I was like, and I think that honestly sparked this like anxious anxiety in me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot a glass. But funny enough, I would say only half the people ended up grabbing a mimosa, so it ended up working out just fine. Now, in terms of when everybody was there and when the event was starting, I just kind of went on the podium and, just thanked everybody for coming, shared just a little bit about us as a brand and as a business. And then I went right into kind of the tour of the tray in front of them and what everything was, kind of the rundown of how everything was going to go. So once that was established, I just kind of walked them through real fast, taking the warning label, putting it on the bottom, and then I walked them through how to actually wick their candles. And again, we put 2 little black dots at the bottom of the jars just so they would know where to put their wicks. And once that was done, because prepping was super easy, once that was done, we just got started on the fragrances. So everybody was able to take the perfume sticks and really just, write down the scents and really figure out what they were wanting. And I think the number one thing that was probably my favorite thing that we did, and this was just a thought in my head of, I wonder how this is going to work, is I had our scent menu cards, and what I wanted everybody to do is highlight the scents that they were wanting to blend together. I recommended to everybody that they should blend about 2 to 3 different fragrances. I'm also going to pause right here because I had some questions on my previous video where I was talking about the candle making workshop and how people were saying, what do you do about these aren't tested and they're blending fragrances? So that's kind of where the disclaimer comes in, but it's also, I know our candles and I know how they're going to perform. These are oils that I'm familiar with, but even then, the oils, all of them were pretty light in density, so they're pretty light oils. So they're all most likely going to blend or going to burn about the same. But I went over the disclaimer. I went over, the how to trimming wicks and candle care and all that kind of stuff. We also included that in their bags. So that's not really something I'm too worried about. I know as candle makers, we're like, but it hasn't been tested. But again, that's kind of where the disclaimer comes in. And me as a candle maker, knowing our product and setting them up for success and having a good idea, even with the oils being slightly different, especially if you are choosing a wick that is the smallest wick that you need, then it is going to err more on the side of possibly burning too cool than burning too hot, if you know what I mean. So if they're using heavy oils, which we didn't really have too many heavy oils, and then we only had one, and it was the vineyard scent. But even then it wasn't like super heavy or anything. So I just wanted to pause and just kind of address that in this video. But what I had done was I had everybody highlight the scents that they were wanting, 2 to 3 different scents. Most people were choosing 2 scents. I think one person chose 3, or maybe 2 people. Not a lot of people chose 3 scents. And then what I would do is individually I would go up to them. And throughout this process, I was going up to different people, and Chris was amazing. I mean, he was making his table laugh. He's just the best. He's literally the best. So he was over at the back table. I was kind of at the front table, and I'd kind of move back and forth. I wanted to make sure I was talking to everybody and, you know, really trying to see what people were looking for and what scents they were liking and kind of the blends they were thinking about. And a lot of them were wanting my personal opinion on it, which I totally get, you know, in terms of the ratios. Because really I was just wondering, you know, are you wanting to have an even blend between these two? Are you wanting to smell one over the other? What are you kind of thinking? So what a lot of people ended up doing was a 25-75. A lot of people wanted just a little bit of one other scent, but have the majority of one scent. There was actually no 50-50, which I found very, very interesting. Even with the person that did the 3 scents, they did 50-25-25. So really, really interesting there. It was just fascinating to see what scents people were gravitating towards, what they were, you know, wanting. And so I was going around, and then once everybody had a, you know, maybe about 10 minutes to really smell all the scents, then I was going through and having them highlight the fragrances, asking them, you know, what kind of ratio are you wanting? And what I did was I put the grams needed. So for instance, if it's a 50-50 blend, you use 20 grams in a candle. I would put 10 grams on one of the scents and then 10 grams on the other. And that was just mentally so that we wouldn't have to do any math in our head. And it was just right there in front of us. So on everybody's cards, I went through and I wrote down the grams needed for each fragrance that they were wanting based on the percentage that they were wanting. After that, once everybody had theirs, then it was time for them to get their fragrance oils. No wax has been poured yet. So wax was going to be after everybody had their fragrance oils. So everybody just had their cups, and they came up to us. And what they did was Chris and I were behind almost like a little fragrance oil bar. So we had all the fragrance oil bottles. We each had our scales, and they would come up, put their cup on there. We would tear it, and then we would go through. We would get their card, and we would see exactly which scents and the grams needed for each scent. I can't even tell you how freaking awesome that was. Like, it was so easy. And also, because the back of the card, it had their signed disclaimer, we would just keep the cards, and then, you know, it was basically them turning it in to get their fragrance. We're getting the disclaimer. I feel like it all really flowed really well with that. I will say, if we had double or triple the amount of people, it probably would have gotten a little messy. I think I would have just done it by table. So had, you know, the tables numbered, and then been like, okay, table 1, come up, let's get your fragrance, table 2, and that kind of thing. Because there was only 12 people doing it, pretty much everybody started coming up, just waiting to give us their card. And then we did their fragrance and then gave it back to them. And then once everybody had their fragrance oil, then we started going through, taking the pictures, filling it up with the amount, bringing it back to them and telling them, okay, now pour in the fragrance oil right away, stir it, you know, for about 30 seconds to a minute, and then you're going to pour it right into your candle. Now, this process was very like, you know, I would take a picture, get it filled up. When I would bring it back to the table, I would pick up another pitcher, bring it back over to Chris. Sometimes he would fill the wax, sometimes I would fill the wax. And we were just kind of working together with, you know, the flow as much as we could. It was a pretty quick process with getting everybody their wax. And then, just making sure they're pouring in the fragrance oil right away and stirring it and then pouring it into their glass. We also had the wick holders on the table as well so that they would just put it right onto it. And I thought, I'm like, okay, so maybe people are going to have some issues with that. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty easy. So most people, actually, I think everybody pretty much was going through and just putting their wick holder on it. And we would just go through and make sure it was taut enough, pulled down enough so that the wicks were not, falling down, that they were pretty taut. But other than that, as soon as that was done, everybody had their candles poured. Then we were like, okay, we're done. And one thing I forgot to mention was we actually had them, before they got their wax, we had them write the name of what scent they wanted on their scent label and actually had them adhere it to the glass jar. So that is something that we had them do before, since it would be much harder for them to adhere the label when the candle is poured. So we wanted to make sure they had their label on first before they actually poured their candle. So once all the candles were poured, I just kind of let them mingle for about 5-10 minutes. And then we actually moved on to bingo. Now, I will say again, this was not my idea. This was the idea of another video that I watched. Maybe I can link it below, because she just had such a great idea for adding this in. And it was a lot of fun. We had our prizes. So what I did was I took those black bags, I had the gold numbers on them, so they were surprises, and that kind of made for some fun. Now, it was really cool because a lot of people were really into it and had a lot of fun with it. And so we did 3 rounds of bingo. It was about 45 minutes total for the 3 rounds, which was a great amount of time. And actually, to give you a time frame, I believe everybody poured their candles at probably around between 11:15, I want to say. We did 1 round of bingo. After that round of bingo, the candles were solidified just enough to be able to move them over to the fridge. So we moved them over to the fridge after the first round, and then we did the following 2 rounds. And after that, so I want to say it was between 12 and 12:15 that we ended the last round of bingo, which was perfect because it ended at 12:30. So we waited around another 15 minutes or so. Then everybody started getting their candles, and they weren't perfectly solidified, but for only about an hour, it really was surprising on how much they were able to set up in order to get them taken home. So Chris mainly did all of that. I was, talking to everybody. Chris mainly was the one that was taking them out of the fridge, making sure everybody got them. And everybody was just awesome. They were so appreciative of just the event. They had a lot of fun. Again, I wish it wasn't so hot. I'm not going to lie, you guys. It was like a 95-degree day. It was hot. Like, it was really hot. And I feel so bad. And honestly, in my head, I'm just like, why did I do August? But we learned a lot. And again, it was a lot of fun. It was definitely an experience, definitely something to learn and get more comfortable with. A lot of people were asking about the next one. And, I want to do a fall one, but I want to make sure it's not hot. So I'm just kind of like, push it off until like mid-October, because with where we live, it can stay hot for a really long time. So it's September 1st, it's 102 out today. So it can stay hot for a really long time. So yeah, that was definitely quite an experience. In terms of what I want to do next time, I definitely I feel like I just need to practice my intro and like what I say to people, because I feel like the more I get comfortable with that, the more I'm able to really just kind of be more confident and less shaky. Because I remember when I went to the show, people like, okay, so this is what you're going to do. You can take one of the scents, just take a perfume stick, put a drop on, and I think I was doing this when I did it. I was so freaking nervous. Oh my God, I was so nervous. But I did start to calm down throughout it, especially when I was doing bingo and I was calling the bingo numbers and all that. That was a lot of fun to be able to do that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. We got cleaned up relatively quickly. It is such like the amount of supplies you have to take versus a vendor event is not even close. Now, I will say it probably would be a good idea to bring some candles with you to sell. There, our thinking was when we go to markets, we have a specific designated candle that we have as kind of like a tester candle, essentially, because with our matte black jars, fingerprints can get all over it, can get kind of dirty. So we were like, oh, are we gonna be okay with everybody grabbing all the different candles? And like, what if they don't buy it? They're just trying to smell it. So we're gonna have to figure out something with that. I don't know if we just do like a tester candle, like a 6-ounce, like our smaller tester candles, and have the actual products in the background. I have no idea how we're going to do it. But we did have people asking us about that. But something else I did was I did have an acrylic sign holder on all the tables, and it was a QR code to sign up for our local email list. So that is something that is extremely important. When you are building up, if you're wanting to get into doing candle making workshops, this is how my mind is thinking, is that I want to try to get as many people who are already there who loved it to come to the next one and bring other friends and tell other people, because it's really going to be a word of mouth kind of situation. They're going to love the experience. They're going to tell other people. They're going to want to come back and do it again. And by having them on my email list, they will get direct communication from me when we are having our next event. It's great to have people follow you on Instagram and all that, but it's not as good as building up an email list. But other than that, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I forgot. Feel free to leave some comments down below if you have any questions on all of it, because I'm really trying to think if there's anything I missed. That's why I wanted to go through pretty much the day, how it all worked, and how it kind of flowed in case you're interested in just that whole process. But I think I'm going to end today's video right here, and I will see you in the next one.